The hospital smelled faintly of antiseptic and overbrewed coffee, a mixture that clung to the air and made me uneasy. As I sat in the cold, white waiting room, I clutched the thin fabric of the gown against my chest and tried to steady my breathing. My name would be called soon, and the surgery I had dreaded for months would finally begin. The doctors had told me there were risks, serious ones. "We'll do everything we can," my surgeon had said, "but recovery will take time, and you shouldn't be alone afterward." Those words had comforted me because I thought I wouldn't be alone. I had my son, Daniel. Daniel was the reason I had the courage to sign the consent forms, the reason I told myself I'd get through this. After his father passed, I had raised him on my own, working long hours, skipping meals so he could eat, taking double shifts to pay for his education. Every sacrifice I made was worth it when I looked at him and thought, he'll be there for me one day. Now, as I sat in that sterile waiting room, I thought of him again. He'd promised he would pick me up after the surgery. "Don't worry, Mom," he'd said just 2 nights before, his voice casual but firm. "I'll be there." That promise was the thread I clung to when the nurse finally called my name. The operating room was colder than I had expected. The lights above me were blinding, and the anesthesiologist's voice felt distant as he asked me to count backward from 10. Fear pressed against my ribs, but I closed my eyes and forced myself to picture something comforting Daniel's smile when he was 5 years old, missing his front tooth, proudly holding up the drawing he made just for me. One day, I whispered to myself before the darkness claimed me, "I'll see him again after this. I'll be okay." When I woke hours later, groggy and disoriented, everything felt heavy. My throat was dry, my body weak, and pain curled through me like fire. The nurse's gentle voice soothed me as she explained the surgery had gone well, but I needed rest and assistance. "Do you have someone coming to pick you up?" she asked kindly. "Yes," I croaked, a weak smile forming on my lips. "My son will be here." And in that moment, despite the ache in my body, I felt a small bloom of relief. I wasn't alone. Daniel would come. He promised. I didn't know then how quickly that promise would shatter. The hours after surgery dragged by in a haze of weakness and exhaustion. My body ached in ways I hadn't thought possible, and each breath felt like a small mountain I had to climb. But through it all, I held on to one thought: Daniel would be here soon. Every time the hospital doors swished open in the distance, I lifted my head, expecting to see him walking toward me. My son, my only family, coming to take me home, but it wasn't him. The nurse came by again, concern in her eyes. "Has your son arrived yet?" she asked gently. I fumbled for my phone on the bedside table. My hands trembled as I dialed Daniel's number. The line rang once, twice, before he finally answered. "Hey, Mom," he said, his tone casual, distracted. I could hear background noise, laughter, music, maybe a television. "Daniel," I whispered, my throat raw. "The surgery's over. They said I'm ready to be discharged. Can you come pick me up?" There was a pause, too long of a pause. At about that, he began, clearing his throat. "I'm kind of busy right now. Clara's friends came over, and we've got plans tonight. I don't think I can make it." For a moment, I thought I hadn't heard him right. My ears buzzed with disbelief. "Daniel, I just had surgery," I said softly, my voice cracking. "They told me I can't go home alone. I need you." Another pause. Then, with a hint of irritation in his voice, he replied, "Mom, you're exaggerating. You'll be fine. Just call a cab or ask one of the nurses to help you out. I can't drop everything every time you need me." His words hit me harder than the scalpel ever could. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My chest tightened, not from the surgery, but from the crushing weight of his indifference. I wanted to scream, to remind him of the nights I stayed awake nursing him through fevers, of the lunches I skipped so he could have new shoes, of the years I carried the weight of 2 parents on my shoulders just to give him a better life, but all I said was, I understand, because in that moment I did. I understood exactly where I stood in his life. The call ended. The flat tone of the disconnected line was louder than any insult. That night I left the hospital not on my son's arm, but in the back of a taxi. The city lights blurred through the window as I clutched my small hospital bag to my chest, each jolt of the car sending a sharp reminder of my frailty. Tears slid silently down my cheeks, not just from pain, but from betrayal. The one person I thought I could count on had abandoned me when I needed him most. And as the cab pulled up to my dark, empty house, a truth settled deep inside me. I had given Daniel everything, and now I had nothing. But somewhere beneath the grief, a spark lit within me. It was faint, but it was there. A seed of resolve. The first weeks after surgery were the hardest. My body was fragile, stitched together with pain and exhaustion. Each step from the bedroom to the kitchen felt like running a marathon, and there were moments when I wanted to cry out for help. But no one came. Daniel didn't call to check in. Clara didn't text. The silence was louder than any words, and the loneliness wrapped around me like a heavy blanket. For years I had dreamed that when I grew old, my son would be my anchor, my safe place. Instead, I was adrift, left to weather the storm alone. At first, I let the betrayal consume me. I lay awake at night, replaying his words. Just call a cab, I can't drop everything every time you need me. They looped in my head, cutting deeper each time. I had sacrificed my youth, my health, my dreams, all for him. And for what? To be cast aside like an inconvenience. One evening, as I sat sipping cold tea at the kitchen table, my old photo albums caught my eye. I opened them, flipping through page after page of Daniel's childhood, birthday parties I had planned with homemade cakes, Christmas mornings where his eyes sparkled at gifts I had saved months to buy, school plays I attended in wrinkled work uniforms because I came straight from my shift. Every picture was a reminder of the love I had given, and every picture also reminded me he hadn't turned into this thoughtless man overnight. I had allowed it. I had given and given without ever asking for respect in return. That night, something inside me shifted. I realized I had been living only for Daniel, for his needs, his happiness, his comfort. But what about me? Who was I beyond being his mother? I didn't even know anymore. For the first time in years, I thought, maybe it's time to live for myself. Recovery became my rebirth. Slowly, I regained strength, not just in my body, but in my spirit. I started going for short walks around the neighborhood. The fresh air stung my lungs but felt cleansing. Neighbors I hadn't spoken to in years waved, and I found myself smiling back. When I was strong enough, I joined a local book club at the library. At first, I was nervous, but soon I was laughing, sharing stories, and realizing how much I had missed connecting with others. From there, I joined a small painting class, something I had always dreamed of doing, but never had the time for while raising Daniel. The more I invested in myself, the more alive I felt. The bitterness toward my son didn't disappear overnight, but it dulled as I filled the emptiness with new passions, new friendships, and most importantly, self-respect. I stopped waiting for Daniel's calls. I stopped hoping for his visits. Instead, I began building a life that didn't revolve around him. And yet, deep down, I knew there would come a day when he would turn back to me, not out of love, but out of need. He had always assumed I would be there, a safety net he could fall into whenever convenient. But next time, things would be different. I was no longer the same woman who left the hospital in tears. I was no longer the mother who mistook sacrifice for love. The next time Daniel looked to me for support, he would learn that the woman he abandoned had found her strength, and her revenge would be served not with anger, but with dignity. Months passed, and my life blossomed in ways I never imagined. I painted landscapes that captured the glow of sunsets. I laughed with new friends over coffee, and I even started volunteering at the community center. People valued my presence, my wisdom, my kindness, things my own son had taken for granted. I felt whole again. Strong, independent. Then, one evening, my phone rang. I froze when I saw Daniel's name flashing on the screen. For a moment, the old ache returned, the yearning for him to call just to ask, "How are you, Mom?" But I quickly shook it off. My gut told me this call wasn't about me. I answered, "Mom," Daniel began, his voice shaky. I don't know what to do. Clara left me. She took the kids and the apartment. I've got nothing. Can I come stay with you for a while, just until I get back on my feet?" For a moment, I was silent. The boy I had raised, the man who had abandoned me in my weakest moment, was now begging for the shelter he once denied me. "Daniel," I said softly, steadying my breath, "do you remember when I called you after my surgery, when I was weak and couldn't even walk on my own? Do you remember what you told me?" He didn't answer. The silence was deafening. "You told me to call a cab, that you were too busy." My voice didn't rise. It stayed calm, measured. "And I did. I picked myself up, Daniel, alone. And since then, I've learned something important. I don't need you to survive. Mom, please," he whispered, his tone desperate now. "I made a mistake. I was stupid. I need your help." The ache in my chest threatened to break me, but I stood firm. "I know you need me, but when I needed you, you weren't there. I can't go back to being the mother who gives everything and receives nothing. You'll have to figure this out without me." I ended the call. For the first time, I didn't cry. Instead, I felt something fierce, something liberating. Not hatred, but power. I had finally broken free from the chains of blind devotion. I had given Daniel life, love, and years of sacrifice. But I would no longer give him my dignity. The weeks that followed only confirmed my decision. Daniel tried calling again, but I didn't answer. Eventually, the calls stopped. Word got around through neighbors that he had moved to a cheaper part of town, struggling but surviving. And me, I thrived. My paintings were displayed in a local gallery. My laughter filled rooms that had once been silent. My heart, though scarred, beat with pride, because my revenge wasn't cruel. It wasn't shouting or punishment. It was living. It was proving that the woman he thought was weak had risen stronger than ever. It was showing him that while he had lost a safety net, I had gained my wings. And in that sweet, silent revenge, I found peace.